Welcome to Christian Statesman. I'm your host, Zach Wagner, and this is episode 125, Cognitive Dissonance and Mental Health. As one of my many professional responsibilities, I spend a lot of time with college students, young people between the ages of 18 and 20-something. It is refreshing and sometimes tiring to spend time with so many young, energetic, and enthusiastic people. I worry about our upcoming generation, yet find myself constantly surprised at their ability to demonstrate intelligence and innovation. Every generation has its challenges. My parents had to survive the Great Depression and the Second World War. My generation had to endure all of the social revolution of the 60s and 70s and the financial melee of the 80s and 90s. This new generation, however, faces an even larger and more formidable foe. In every instance of administration and teaching, we are sensitive to the mental health of the young people we serve. Anxiety, depression, and suicide are at all-time highs among the student-age population today. The statistics per capita are multiples higher than they were when I was a youth. It really is quite alarming, and we can see the results in the dormitories and classrooms on a regular basis. I have often pondered the many casualties of such devastation on a demographic that should be most enthusiastic at an age when they have the best years of their lives before them. I believe one major causal force that is closing in on everyone in general, but is most acute among our youth in particular, is the cognitive dissonance between the world the media portrays to them and the actual realities they are seeing on the ground day to day. These two realities have never been farther apart than they are now, and whether one pays detailed and close attention to these differences or only casually perceives them intuitively, I believe the discrepancies play out in each of our minds, either overtly and consciously or subconsciously. In other words, the picture of the world we are fed on a daily basis is more and more of a fantasy world, ever more distantly related to the realities that are occurring behind the scenes. The fake election, the pandemic that is changing our landscape, the false prophets such as Fauci or Pelosi, all have a negative effect. We are being sold lies and deceptions on a regular basis and being coerced into accepting them as fact. This must set up emotional conflict within each of us as we try to balance the realities our eyes see and our hearts are whispering to us versus the narrative coming at us from the media and those hypnotized by the official media narratives. Many of the so-called adults I live and work with have literally lost their minds. They subscribe to and fully seek to operate within these same false realities that are being fed wholesale to us on a daily basis. And they seek to teach and influence the younger generation. These fake realities create more and more dissonance among them. It is not just the television or internet spewing this nonsense. It is now trusted adults in positions of supposed respect and authority. For example, when a learned professor gets up in front of their students and tries to weave a sophisticated argument to convince them that there are 57 genders, or a man can be a woman, or that the entire country has always been systemically racist, or that certain people should be elevated because of their historic oppression, or that if we do not take an experimental medical treatment, we are showing disdain for our fellow man, this creates a quandary in the minds of the young who have not fully developed their own critical thinking skills. Those with supposed experience and authority are telling them one thing, while their own intuition and logic are suggesting another. For any teenage or post-pubescent male, trying to describe more than two biological genders is quite an exercise in dialectics. Trying to describe his inferiority based on systemic racism or the supposed priority of gender identity over actual biology is a futile exercise in circular logic. Perhaps the greatest disconnect of all of our youth is trying to convince them their commander-in-chief is the most popular president in history, receiving the most votes of any candidate to date. As the youth of America, a strong supposed base that tipped the 2020 election in Biden's favor, chant F. Biden in college football stadiums across the country, perhaps the disconnect of the official narrative and their on-the-ground experience creates even more dissonance. We cannot expect young and impressionable minds to easily buy into the nonsense we are now being fed. Remember, it has always been the zealous youth who have been historically recruited to upset existing systems. Now they are being asked to knuckle under and buy the fictional tropes without question. Unfortunately, I see the increasing dissonance of this as having real consequences in the mental health of our youth. Not that those in power truly care for our future generations, or for anyone at this point, but those who perpetrate these lies should be ashamed and held accountable. If an earthly tribunal cannot bring justice to these crimes of the mind, certainly someday a heavenly tribunal will. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, and as always, have a blessed day.